Hi everyone, and welcome back to Thrivery. This is Kara, and I'm just checking back in with you after last week. I said I would see how things were going for you, going into some interesting transits this week. And last week we were finishing up Mercury coming up to the closing phase, Pluto, and I was talking about what are you ready to let go from your mental space? What is being eliminated from your thought patterns that may be causing you feelings of loss? And I certainly was feeling that and still am trying to come out of that. And now, of course, we have, excuse me, some new transits that are going on, and I myself am very sensitive to them. So maybe you are also feeling these in this way or in a little bit different way, depending on where it's falling within your own chart and what it's aspecting. But this week we have a couple significant transits that are happening. Today is Wednesday. What day is it? February 15th. I should have known that. Yesterday was Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. So I do actually have my little candle, my little pink candle that I have to represent love, joy, and laughter going. So the transits that I'd like to talk about for this week include Mercury entering Aquarius, now in a new phase with Pluto. We're still feeling that Pluto pull because Mercury is still very close to Pluto, but moving away from him now. We have the Sun conjunct Saturn in Aquarius. So we got a lot of Aquarian energy going on. And I'll talk about this in a minute, but Mercury, like I said, and Pluto are still squaring the karmic nodes. That's that tense aspect of past and future meeting. And how do we reconcile that within our own mental space, Mercury? We have the Sun that is coming up to the conjunction of Saturn. I think it's actually exact today. And Saturn has still been in this ongoing square with Uranus and Taurus. Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, where Saturn and the Sun are, and also now Mercury. So this is a significant repeating theme that's happening here with all this Uranian energy. And then we also have Venus now in a conjunction with Neptune. And I'm going to talk about that one last because if you've been following me for a while, I've been talking about Venus as the star this year. Even though there are significant outer planet changes happening this spring, and then we even have the nodal shift this summer, Venus is the ruler currently of the North Node. Once the nodes shift, she will be ruling the South Node. So her movements this year are very significant. So I'm calling this, the year of relating. And a lot of my work has to do with helping people reconnect to themselves and to others. How do you relate? How do you see yourself? How do you talk to yourself? How do you understand about your needs and your value, your worth? How do you relate to your inner child and the inner critic? Because all of that plays out in how we relate to others and where we project what we need and how we expect to have the needs met and where we place meaning. All of these things, and especially as Venus is transiting Pisces in a conjunction to her higher octave, Neptune, it's a significant time, and I'll talk about that more in a moment. So let's back up to the idea of, or the archetype of Aquarius. So we're looking at the Sun now moving through Aquarius. We call that Aquarius season. So happy solar return or happy birthday to all the Aquarians out there. And this energy, Aquarian energy brings, it is a mental energy. Uranus represents long-term memory, collective memory. It can also represent trauma, but not in the way that it causes trauma, but just in the way that it's felt in the human experience. Because there's things sometimes that happen to us, or that information that we find out that takes us a while to process. And this is what I feel is a significant happening with this energy currently. Mercury is also our communication. It's still about the mental spaces. Uranus then is the higher octave of Mercury. So there's definitely this connection with Mercury in Aquarius. Our minds are sped up. And this can bring brilliant new ideas. This can bring problem solving. This can bring, a lot of very positive things, new ways of doing things where we just have a breakthrough if we've been trying to figure something out for a while, and now all of a sudden we have a new idea to put in place, to try out. And those are all very positive things. Where it can get a little challenging, because I always like to bring up the challenges. We have to move through the shadow in order to get to the evolution. And so sometimes these mental energies that are sped up and forward thinking, we each get these new ideas and we're trying to bounce them off of each other, and everyone else has other ideas, and we're trying to accomplish something, but maybe we can't see eye to eye, or I have this great idea but you're just not following me, or you see the future one way and I just can't follow you. I can't see it. And so there's a disconnect. It feels like, man, nobody gets me. Nobody understands me. I don't have anyone to relate to that way, that thinks like me. There are people out there that think like you. You just maybe haven't found them. But it may feel that way for a while, especially with all this Aquarian energy going on. But we need it. We need these new ideas. We need this trailblazing energy to break us out of this old paradigm where the old structures are crumbling and just becoming irrelevant. We need these new ideas to bring us into the future. So the sun highlighting this energy is important as well. The sun coming up on Saturn, and this is the repeating theme as well that we have been working through for the past decade. Pluto's transit through Capricorn. And why do I bring that up now? Because Saturn is related to Capricorn. And Pluto is the transformer. So as Mercury has been connected to Pluto in Capricorn, it's been those eliminating thought patterns of the past conditioning. Pluto through Capricorn has shown us where the old structures, old conditioning just doesn't work anymore. And sometimes it feels like a great loss to try to let any of that go. We're very attached to the way we do things, the way we think about things. And it's hard to make new thought patterns and new habits. But it's necessary moving into the future. So the sun conjunct Saturn. The sun is highlighting this energy, as I said. Saturn is our planet of time. represents direction, represents structure, law, authority. And so in the human experience, we oftentimes can feel Saturn as limitation or restriction. So we may feel a little low energy this week, maybe a little harder time getting motivated. And it's challenging because Saturn in Aquarius, it's that almost opposite energy. And especially as Saturn is in a tense conversation with the ruler of Aquarius, Uranus. It's this constant back and forth struggle of coming up against authority or limitation or boundaries or these conditioned patterns, and yet needing to break from them. Feeling the impetus to just break out. I just have to change something. But I don't know how. Sometimes I don't even know what. And sometimes I don't even have the energy to even think about it. So my encouragement with this for this week is to have grace with yourself. Lots of extra self-compassion when we don't feel that we have the motivation, or when we struggle with feeling of limitation, where we're continually going back to the past patterns, repeating those past patterns, for lack of another word. I can't come up with another word right now. Just the conditioning, and we get triggered and we respond and we react the same way. Even though we are aware of it now, and maybe we're trying to make changes, and in our logic and in our normal everyday mind, we can say, okay, this is how I'm going to respond next time. But then in the heat of the moment, when we get triggered, we react the same old way. Because those thought patterns are very, very crystallized in our mind. And it almost requires a shock or something significant to break it out, to shatter that old structure. That is the symbolism of Saturn, Capricorn, and Aquarius, Uranus. So trying to find what makes you different. If we're feeling a little less motivated and maybe we need to rest a little bit more, first of all, give yourself permission to rest, because that's very important. And in that time of resting and trying to reconnect to yourself, maybe you come up with a new idea of, hey, you know what? This is how I think I want to define myself now. This is kind of the direction that I think I want to go in. And it's not that you have to make any drastic changes today, but just begin allowing yourself, giving yourself permission to maybe try to think in a new way, to see yourself maybe moving in new directions. Even though we feel these limiting patterns, these limiting restrictions, and you almost get to a point where you can't bear it anymore, that is what is pushing you to make the necessary changes. It's like a rubber band that's being stretched out. You get to the critical point where you've been stretched too much and you're going to snap back. And that snap is the Uranian impulse to break the pattern. And sometimes it's messy, and sometimes it's ugly, and sometimes it hurts you and maybe other people. And that's unfortunate, but that's also part of being human. So we've talked a little bit about Mercury, expressing your own ideas and all these new thought patterns that may be coming to you. you may be saying new things and coming up with these trailblazing ideas, and maybe it's this new puzzle to be solved, and you might feel a little rejected by people who don't quite get you. This transit can also bring about some mental anxiety because all of these new ideas that are coming in and swirling around so quickly. I'm calling it tired and wired. At least that's how I'm feeling. I've had some insomnia for about a week now, where I just maybe won't sleep for a day or two, and I'm tired. I want to sleep, but my mind just can't rest. And I'm a very mercurial person, so this transit usually affects me like this. But I'm also feeling that restriction. Like I'm having new ideas and I'm ready to get some things moving, but I don't have this capacity. I don't have the space yet. There's something that still needs to break before I can move forward. So some of this requires patience. And like I said, that self-compassion. So I'll pause for a moment before I start talking about Venus and just let you know that you can find me at astrokara.com. I am at Thriveuary on most social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube. I do also have Discord, Telegram, which I don't use quite as much, but I am available there. So there's lots of places that you can connect to me if you have questions or if you're interested in booking a reading. I am doing some workshops this month and have more collaborations coming as well. So if you want to follow with that, if you're local to the Phoenix area. Is that everything? I think, yes. Oh, like and subscribe, please, if you like the content and would like to see more. Or if you have questions or concerns or want to just respond to anything that I've been describing, please feel free to comment and I will do my best to respond to you here. Okay, so now let's talk about Venus, because this feels like such a wonderful, warm, loving, happy transit. And I think it can be. If Venus, in a very basic descriptive way, represents earthly love, human love, love between people, friends, partners, family, and then maybe even with nature, pets, anything that's earthbound. And then Neptune represents divine love, the all that is, the source, God, goddess, universe, spirit, however you wish to label it. But it's the external love that's outside of this 3D realm that we want to connect to, that we have this illusion of separateness from, and that we're all trying to get back to, that our souls are trying to get back to. So Venus and Neptune are very connected. Like I said, it's the higher octave and lower octave of each other. The frequencies of energy is love. But in the human experience, we feel it as Venus as those values, things that we find worth or place value in, how we relate to ourselves, to others, to things and ideas. And then the Neptune, the Piscean field is, how we relate to maybe the divine, how we connect to something that's greater than ourselves. So Pisces is the last sign in the zodiac. It is often felt as a completion phase. Karmic patterns that are being completed. It's sometimes felt as a very confusing time, because where Neptune wants fluidity and no boundaries, and we in our human minds are trying to create a container to put those thoughts in, to put those feelings in, and just isn't one within Pisces. So it gets a little confusing. And the reality is that we all need these transcendental mystical experiences in our life. It helps us to balance all of the Saturnian structure. And it's a place where we can find inspiration. It's a place where we can go to dream. Unfortunately, sometimes we can get lost in our dreams. We can get lost in these fantasies and illusions, because it feels so good and fluid to be just floating in the ocean of love. But within that, we can get lost. We can get confused. So again, I would encourage you to just have some self-compassion this week, to have patience with yourself and with other people, because if we're all walking around confused and anxious and not having any energy, we're going to probably run into other people and bump into each other and possibly create challenges. And so it helps if we can slow down a little bit and just be patient. Practice the pause before we react. So let's talk about Venus in this closing cycle. She goes through the zodiac about once a year, depending on her retrogrades. And so whatever Venus cycles, so love, relationships, themes around that, even potentially money, it's whatever we are placing our value in. If there's some thought processes, Mercury, that need to be changed or eliminated, Pluto, maybe some limiting beliefs, Saturn, that are being highlighted in your mind right now, the Sun, that need to begin a forward motion, Aquarius. In order for you to break out of limiting beliefs, do you have limiting beliefs around money? Around relationships? Maybe it's a time to re-examine some of those things and create new dreams, new visions. It's a time to think big. We still have Jupiter in Aries until May. And this again, so I will caution you a little bit with Venus in Pisces, and as Neptune has been in Pisces for the last several years, we can become really, I'm going to use the word addicted. We can become addicted to escapism, because the world is so hard sometimes. Being in the Saturnian realm and experiencing all the heavy stuff that's going on as we've been dealing with Pluto in Capricorn and the South Node through Scorpio, bringing up all of the past shit, just digging it up from the depths, and us having to face all of that. It's hard. And there's times where we just need to escape. We need to distract ourselves, or we need to numb out. But the problem is when we get too familiar with that and we spend more time in the disassociated state and the I lost my word. If we stay too long in the fantasy world, in the disillusionment, or in the illusion, I should say, in that, the word is just not coming to me, but escaped, if we're staying too long in the escape, then we lose track of reality. We have nothing to ground us. And sometimes it's hard to come back. And so, when we have a lot of Piscean energy, and then we have Jupiter in Aries that just shows up and says, okay, here I am. Let's go do whatever it is we're doing, and let's do it big. Sometimes that can get us into a little trouble if we are going big on the escaping. So that's just my word of caution. Be aware of your own needs in that way. And I'm all for needing to take a break from reality sometimes. But we still have to come back to it, and we still have to deal with it. And that's where my work comes in, is I help people to reconnect to their own feelings, their own emotions, their own struggles. And then also I help you to see your innate strengths. And I provide support while you're processing through some of that stuff. So let's get back to Venus and Neptune in Pisces. This can also, in a positive, I want to say one more potentially negative thing, and then I want to switch to the positive. Because I was talking about trying to be patient with other people. Venus in Pisces, because it's boundaryless, because Neptune is, like I said, the sea, the ocean of, we want to be fluid and we want to have no boundaries. And it can be a little confusing, a little foggy. We can feel a lot of times the pain of others. So, especially if you're empathic or if you're a highly sensitive person, you may want to stay home as much as possible this week, because being around more groups of people with these types of transits, you're going to pick up a lot of that energy, and it's very chaotic, anxious energy. I think that's a lot of reason why I'm so drained and why I have such insomnia. Whenever I'm around a big group of people, I feel their pain. And we have a lot of stuff going on in the world right now that's very significant. I mean, there always is something, but we've just had this terrible earthquake in Turkey and Syria where people are still suffering on a large scale. We've had these, accidents with all this toxic chemicals that people are trying to, get away from or deal with, and, it's causing pain, and you know what I'm talking about. I don't want to dwell on that necessarily, but collectively, there is a significant amount of pain. And especially during this type of transit, we can be feeling that pain. It may not even be our own, but we're feeling it anyway. And so that's another reason we may feel like we need to disassociate or escape. So there's we can do some breath work. We can do some other grounding techniques to help us get back into our own body and recognize this is where I am, and that pain does not necessarily belong to me. I can empathize, I can have compassion, but I don't necessarily have to take it on as my own. Which then leads to maybe a little humanitarianism. That's also an ideal within Aquarius. And selfless love. That's Venus in Pisces. So maybe think about what we can do to not only extend help and care to others who are hurting. But remember that we are part of the human race as well. How can we turn that empathy, compassion, selfless love back inward? Where do you need to give yourself extra love this week? Where might your own psyche need a break? Where can you provide that space for yourself, even in small doses? Because we're all busy. We all get caught up in the busyness of life. Take 5 minutes before you leave your job. Sit in your car and just breathe. Give yourself 5 minutes to say, this is my time. Not going to answer the phone. I'm not going to look at a text. I'm not going to check social media. 5 minutes to just breathe and reconnect to your body. Start with something like that and see if it helps. That's just one example. Make it work for you. But do give yourself those times. Give yourself permission to have your own space, even if it's for only 5 minutes. I wish you the best during these transits. Please feel free to comment if you're struggling with anything, or if you're excited about something that's coming your way, or if you're experiencing this maybe a little differently than the way I've described it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, take care.